I watched them move around the hall. He held her, and they moved together, swaying. Their legs seemed to merge into one. It was smooth, easy. It was obvious that they were perfectly coordinated as partners. The look on my wife's face showed that she was enjoying it. Music filled the room as club members gathered around the perimeter of the room, applauded, and enjoyed the couple's performance on the dance floor. I moved from my bar stool to look into the spacious dance hall to watch my wife dance with her partner at her weekly workout. Dancing was never my thing, but Linda loved it, and when we joined the club, she was delighted to find out that there was a dance department. I sipped my drink as I watched Linda and her partner walk away to the wall on the opposite side of the room, holding hands and deep in discussion about their performance. I felt a twinge of jealousy as I watched their fingers intertwined as they chatted with another couple from the dance group. I hadn't made an appointment to meet her that evening and stopped at the club on the way home, unexpectedly finishing work a little early. I was supposed to work until midnight, but the order ended early, and here I am with 3 hours to spare. Until now, she had not noticed my arrival and was so engrossed in dancing that she did not notice anything around her. She simply did not expect to see me. I looked at her partner, George. He was a little older than both of us. In fact, he was already retired and in his 60s, almost 20 years older than us. He was confident, independent, and a ladies' man who realized that joining a dance class was a way to meet different women. He was also an excellent dancer, which made him an attractive partner to many of the women in the group. Linda mentioned him several times, saying that all the ladies from the club were looking for him because he was so good. Listening to her praise his skill over and over again made me zone out. Maybe that's why I decided to come and see it for myself. At first, I told myself it was stupid, but I found myself here nonetheless, watching and appreciating it. We had been married for 20 years and had two teenagers, Rachel, who had recently turned 18, and Ryan, who was 16. Both were fairly independent and were starting to live their own lives, staying home less and less. That's why we decided a couple of years ago that we needed to expand our social circle and joined a local social club that hosted a variety of events, including dances, as well as organized trips and fun outings. Overall, we quickly got used to this schedule, participating in various activities together and separately. The main condition was not to infringe on our time with each other. This worked until Linda became more and more interested in her dancing. Gradually, this became her only interest, and she began to devote all her free time to this, not counting the fact that she was doing this alone since I did not dance. At first, this suited me, but lately her classes have become noticeably more frequent. Instead of twice a month, they began to take place every week, and sometimes unscheduled training sessions were also added. It happened gradually, but now I'm sitting in the corner of the room, drinking my Jack Daniels and watching my wife hold another man's hand. The group of 20 people gathered here do not even notice my presence. George, her partner, stands behind her with his arm around her waist, his arm resting so confidently on her that it looks completely natural. This worries me. I feel the rage rise up inside me when I see how he holds her, and she doesn't do anything to pull away or set boundaries. My patience is at its limit. I placed my glass on the table and prepared to intervene to stop this scene. But then the group began to disperse, and the music began to play. The couples mixed up a bit, and I saw my wife leaving the group with a new partner. I leaned back in my chair, observing the new distribution. Her new partner turned out to be another older man, and I noticed that almost all the men in the group looked over 60, and most of the women were much younger. No wonder they are all so happy, I thought. Couples began to move around the room, and I watched as this new man held my wife tightly, his hand resting comfortably on her lower back. They chatted casually, and Linda even blushed slightly at some point. At this point, I realized I couldn't take it anymore and decided to go back to the bar. The session was supposed to end in a few minutes, and I decided to wait for her there, trying to act calmly. I grabbed another drink and sat down at one of the slot machines. The bar was quite lively, and I disappeared into the crowd. I watched as the dancers began to leave the hall and gather in the bar area. I waited, but Linda never showed up. 5 minutes later, I began to move through the crowd to the hall and looked inside. It was empty. No one. Puzzled, I scanned the crowd at the bar again, in case she was simply lost among the people, but she was nowhere to be seen. And significantly, I didn't see either George or her other partner. Strange. I slowly walked towards the exit. Outside, in the cool evening air, I looked around the parking lot. Nothing moved, no one was visible, only parked cars. I thought maybe she hitched a ride home. This is what I tried to convince myself, but it was difficult for me to believe it. Something was wrong. I walked to my car, my mind sinking deeper into suspicion. I replayed in my head the scenes of her with George and that other man, how they held hands, how he put his arm around her waist so openly. Now she suddenly disappeared. What's happening? I started the car and drove out of the parking lot. If she really took a ride home, she should be there waiting for me. It was about 9:30 p.m. and Linda wasn't expecting me until midnight, so we could have some alone time, which I hoped would be nice. I pressed the remote garage door opener and smoothly parked inside. Our garage was large and had room for 2 cars, and Linda's car was in its usual place. I ran my hand over the hood. It was cold. So maybe she hitched a ride to the club. I walked out the back garage door into our yard, then opened the kitchen door. It was locked. I opened it with the key and felt the emptiness of the house. This feeling of emptiness echoed inside me. I looked at my watch, 9:55. Could I really have missed her on the way home? I went upstairs, took off my clothes, and got into the shower. Hot water hit my head and face as I tried to comprehend what was happening. Unless, of course, something really happens. After feeling refreshed and drying myself with a towel, I put on clean clothes. It was 10:30. Where the hell is she? And with whom? I could feel the anger simmering beneath the surface, ready to burst out. But who should I be angry with? I was alone. I needed answers, and fast. Otherwise, I might go crazy. By 11:05, I was nervously pacing around the house, full of worry, anger, anxiety, and utter despair. Something was clearly going on, and it wasn't like her. Or maybe I just didn't notice something. I worked the night shift every 3rd week at a local printing plant. I was a foreman, not a simple worker who gets his hands dirty, but rather a junior manager. It wasn't a bad job, but the shifts were annoying. In this regard, Linda did have opportunities to go beyond our agreements while I was working. Every night from Monday to Friday, she could be doing anything, and I wouldn't even know. However, there were no obvious signs. Our sex life remained stable. On night shifts, of course, the week passed without intimacy, but by the weekend everything was back to normal. This suited both of us. We were used to this routine. I sat down, wondering what to do next. Confrontation. But what do I know? Almost nothing, just your suspicions and unfounded feelings. I realized that I needed more information. I need to know everything for sure. I looked at my watch, 11:27. Linda didn't expect me until an hour later. If she's really hiding something, she'll probably want to go home before then. I went upstairs and quickly checked the shower, put my dirty things away, and went downstairs. Then I walked out the back door, locked it behind me, and headed into the garage. 11:38. Should I leave the garage by car or hide here? She won't go to the garage because her car is already here. So, it is logical to assume that she will enter through the front door. I got into the car and waited. Just in case, I turned off the automatic opening of the gate so as not to get caught. The silence in the garage was deafening. 11:58. I heard the car stop softly in front of the house. The engine was running quietly, and my heart was pounding wildly in my chest. Blood was pounding in my ears. 12:03. There was the sound of a car door closing, then the sound of an engine as the car slowly drove away. The next sound is the opening and closing of the front door. I exhaled, not knowing why I felt relieved. But soon the tension returned. The muscles tensed, the rage began to rise again, seething somewhere deep inside. I decided to wait. I sat in the car until 12:18, taking deep breaths to calm myself. Then I left the garage. The back door was now unlocked, which meant Linda had left it. Interesting. I entered the kitchen and shouted. It's me. The answer came from above. Hello, dear. Everything is fine. I dry my hair. I threw the dirty laundry into the washing machine and noticed that there were already things in there. Curiosity got the better of me, and I pulled out what turned out to be Linda's underwear, her new purple set. I smelled her, mixed with another alien scent. I threw the laundry back into the car and headed for the stairs. The evidence was piling up. This would be enough to cause a huge scandal, but I needed the irrefutable truth. I wanted to be on top, having all the arguments in hand. Revenge will come later, but I wanted there to be no doubt. I suddenly thought about children. Where are they? Before that, I didn't even remember them, but they definitely weren't at home. Wednesday. Recall. Neither of them had college classes right now. Most likely, they spend the night with friends. Yes, that's definitely true. I climbed up heavily, feeling my heart pounding from tension. I was heading towards the unknown, or perhaps an uncertain future. Confrontation was inevitable, but I needed to find out what exactly was going on. Linda was sitting in front of her dressing table, drying her hair. When I walked in, she turned and smiled at me. How was your evening? I asked. Everything is fine, she replied. I was at the dance, as usual. Brian gave me a ride. Did you meet him at the club? She smiled again. No, I don't think I have. Does he dance too? Yes, he dances. He always takes his wife with him. He gave me a lift today too, she said, watching my reaction. Did you just take a shower? I asked, seeing that she was still wrapped in a towel. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she realized the situation she was in. Yes, I took a shower a while ago. I just haven't changed into my night clothes yet, and I decided to wash my hair. You know I can't stand it when my hair is sticky, she replied, turning away and starting to fiddle with her hair. I bit my lip. I knew she was lying, but I decided to be patient for now. I leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. Well, I'm tired. I need to get some sleep. I walked around the bed, quickly took off my clean clothes, and got into bed. Lying on my back, I watched her dry her hair, sneaking a look at me in the mirror. She smiled, but I saw a slight tension in her smile. Are you okay, dear? You seem somehow different, she said, looking at me in the reflection. It's okay, honey, as long as you're okay. I hope you had a great night of dancing. I know how much you love them. By the way, I thought maybe I should start walking with you. It would be interesting to meet other members or take some lessons. That would be great, dear. They are just planning a trip to Blackpool in the near future. Probably for the weekend, she replied, carefully watching my reaction. I saw how she tried to be casual, but there was a slight worry in her voice. This was the first clue something unusual. Weekend. Could they be planning a trip together? No, that's impossible. Too many people would find out. Or still. Linda slid under the covers a few minutes after she finished drying her hair. Good night, honey, she whispered, turning off the nightlight. I lay in the dark, my head racing with thoughts as I tried to comprehend everything that had revealed itself to me that evening. I was pretty sure Helen was up to something with her dance partner. Or maybe it was that other man I saw her with on the dance floor. I knew her underwear was wet, and although it could have been her own secretions, deep down I knew it wasn't. And also this conversation about a trip to Blackpool, which came out of nowhere. I know this place is a mecca for dancers, but I don't remember this trip being mentioned at the club, although this can be explained. Then I began to wonder where she had been since 9:30 p.m., and how she had accidentally gotten home exactly when I usually finished work. Coincidence? Innocent? Maybe. No, something is clearly wrong here. Lying in the dark, listening to her even breathing, I decided to find out everything to the end, what was happening and to whom, before showing my cards. And then there will be consequences. I woke up early to find Helen already up, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting from the kitchen. After taking a quick shower and getting dressed, I went to get the scent. Going downstairs, I found her at the table. She was looking through the newspaper. The morning TV channel played in the background, creating a soft noise that broke up the potentially awkward silence. She looked up at me over her glasses. For some reason, that look always seemed incredibly sexy to me, and this morning was no exception. She knew it. "Good morning, darling. How are you today?" I smiled at her, although I remained on guard inside. After last night, I didn't want to voice my suspicions too soon, so I put on a happy expression on my face. "I'm fine, darling. The night was wonderful." I poured myself some coffee and offered to give it to her, but she refused. Sitting down at the table, I took a piece of toast and, after taking a bite, looked at her carefully, trying to understand what was on her mind, or even who she really is. "How was the dance last night?" I asked, picking up the sports section of the newspaper and opening it, but looking at it over the top of the page. She did not raise her head from her spread, continuing to study him. "Oh, as usual, still the same company. I told you about this last night. Sorry, I was a little tired when you arrived." Her gaze did not leave the newspaper. "It's okay, love. I was completely exhausted myself, so I didn't expect anything, and I guessed that you had a busy day. Everything is fine." I looked at her again. She still avoided eye contact. I grinned to myself. Guilt? "I'm going to visit a friend in the morning, for a little while. You mentioned something about traveling with the club yesterday, but I didn't seem to pay attention. What kind of trip is this?" I watched her reaction closely. She tensed for a moment, but then turned the page of the newspaper and calmly replied, "Oh yes, did I mention? Well, that means yes. A couple of people from the dance group were talking about going to Blackpool, the tower and all that. I don't know the exact details, but it's a weekend trip. Some of the guys are looking for options for booking a hotel for several people. Nothing concrete yet, but maybe it will be soon. Do you mind?" I looked at her as she talked about the trip, clearly trying not to go into details. We must give her credit. She played her role very convincingly. "Is this a trip for couples? That is, for husbands and wives? Or for dance partners?" I asked casually. "I think there are only 4 couples, so it's more likely for partners. There will also be the opportunity to dance in the ballroom, so space is limited. If you're against it, I won't sign up." She looked at me over her glasses. I met her gaze for a few seconds, thinking about it. We had already gone on weekends separately, so there seemed to be no reason to refuse. However, now it bothers me. I put on my best poker face. "I'm sure it will be an unforgettable weekend. I know how much you've wanted to go there for a long time, so why not go?" I was surprised by her reaction. She literally jumped out of the chair, grabbed my face, and kissed me as hotly as she had not done for a long time, especially in the morning. "Oh, Rick, thank you. This means so much to me. I won't forget this. I really won't forget it. When I return, I will thank you, I promise." She was beaming. I carefully freed myself from her embrace, trying to understand why there was such a sudden outburst of tenderness. Smirking, I slapped her on the butt as I stood up. "I won't be long, honey. We need to go see Alfie. See you at lunchtime." Helen was still smiling when I left. Yes, me too. I was pleased with myself. I managed to cope with my emotions, did not get angry, and did not betray my suspicions. But then I thought, what is the point of all this? After all, I, in fact, was spying on my own wife, suspecting her of cheating. What happened to our marriage anyway, if he still existed at all? I drove to my friend Alfie's house. We knew each other since school and played golf every couple of weeks. We talked often, so Helen wouldn't have been surprised to hear that I had stopped by to see him. He was married and had 2 kids about the same age as mine, so we often shared stories of teenage antics over beers at the bar after games. I parked at his house and saw him mowing the lawn. "Hello, Rick. What's the reason? Today isn't Sunday, is it?" he shouted, turning to move the mower away from me. I waited for him to come back. "Something's on my mind, I see," he said when he returned. "Give me a minute, I'll clean it up, go into the house. Everyone has left, no one will disturb us." I entered through the open garage door and walked into the house. It was quiet there. Walking into the kitchen, I saw traces of his family everywhere. Toys, photographs, things. The house seemed cozy and lived in. I sat down at the kitchen island, checked the coffee maker, turned it on, and waited. A minute later, Alfie appeared at the door, noisy and awkward as always. "So what happened, Rick?" he asked, sitting down opposite me, his face reflecting concern. "I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. I'm almost sure. I think not. I know Helen is cheating on me," I said, watching his face as my words sunk in. "Come on, Rick. Are you kidding?" "No, it can't be. You must be wrong." I looked at him silently. "Damn it! Are you serious? Crap. Well, tell me, buddy, how can I help? Do you know who this is?" "How? Where? Sorry, but it's just a shock, you know. But no matter what happens, I'm with you. Just tell me, are you sure?" I felt my eyes fill with tears and my heart clench in pain. I bit my lip as I looked at my best friend. I needed help. I needed something. I didn't yet understand what exactly, but I definitely needed something. Alfie put his hand on my shoulder. "Damn it. Come on, buddy. We can handle it. Tell me what you know. I take it you haven't told her anything yet?" I gathered my strength, took a deep breath, and began to speak. Over the next few minutes, I told Alfie everything I knew, what I saw, what I suspected. He listened silently, his face becoming increasingly serious as he realized how difficult this was for me. I could see in his eyes that he also understood. This was a serious matter, and this, oddly enough, added to my pain. When I finished my story, I felt a little better. I was even able to cry under control, which seemed incredibly weak to me. "So what are you going to do, Rick?" asked Alfie. "Confrontation? Or what?" "Yes, I'm going to talk to her. But first I need to know how far this has gone. I have a feeling there's more to come. She's been hinting at this trip to Blackpool, and I think it might just be a cover to have more fun." I looked out the kitchen window at the manicured lawn and apple trees he and I had planted several years ago. Alfie also looked in that direction. "I remember that day," he said. "It was a good day. And every year we have more and more apples that remind us of this. Mom would be proud." Yes, she would be proud. Her apple pies were the best. I think it was right to plant trees in her memory. Alfie's mom once helped me when I lost my parents. She took care of me when I was a troubled teenager. I owed her a lot. How I missed her wisdom now. If she were here, she would knock Helen out with one blow. Alfie grinned. We both laughed. His mother was a strong, uncompromising woman from the East End, but with a heart as big as a lion. No one touched her family. She was fearless, but always fair. "So, what are we going to do?" asked Alfie. "I need to find out more about those in the dance group. I have seen several people whom I would not trust, even with my neighbor's cat, not to mention my wife. George and Brian are the only names I know so far." "Rick, think logically. Are these two married? Do their wives know what's going on? Are they involved too?" Alfie looked at me carefully, and I realized that I hadn't thought about it yet. But this opened up potential avenues for retaliation. I need more information about those I already know and somehow find out more about the other participants. They looked very united when I saw them the other day, but who knows? "Hold on, buddy. We'll figure it out and then maybe kick some ass, okay?" said Alfie. "I'll ask Patty to discreetly ask the women at the club something. The main thing is that this does not come up ahead of time. Thank you, friend. Now I really need help and support. I think I should stay away from the club so I don't accidentally bump into them." We spent another hour discussing options, ranging from the reasonable to the absurd. For some reason, this helped. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I noticed that I should have been home a long time ago. Helen might already be waiting for me, although, for some reason, my phone never rang. I left Alfie with a promise to talk again tomorrow or as soon as news broke. As I slowly walked home, I was lost in thoughts about my wife. I always thought that everything was fine with us, that we were happy. I didn't expect such betrayal, but now that the veil had lifted, I began to see what I had previously missed. Opportunities, little signs, hints. Looking back, I realized how easy it all was to notice. I thoughtlessly allowed her to go to dances every week without thinking about any possible problems. How stupid I was. Or maybe too trusting. Why didn't I just go with her? I tried to pull myself together, preparing to meet her. I couldn't afford to throw out everything I knew and turn it into a fight. If I wanted to get any satisfaction from this situation, I had to get to the truth and expose everyone who was involved. When I arrived at the house, I saw that the garage was open, but Helen's car was not there. I parked and walked into the empty house. Luckily, our children stayed with friends, which allowed me to focus on my thoughts. I spent an hour checking our computer and email accounts for any clues. Nothing. Then I quickly looked around the bedroom, looking into its drawers and closets. Nothing again. I sat in the kitchen, disappointed, wondering where else I could look. Everything indicated that there was no paper trail. If they communicated, then, most likely, only in words, which is safer and does not leave evidence. But there must be something somewhere. I looked at my phone and suddenly realized, of course, it's not a perfect solution, but maybe it will give me some clues. I went to the App Store and found the tracker. Okay, the first thing I needed to do was install it on my phone, and then on Helen's phone if I could get it away from her even for a minute. It was better than nothing. I downloaded the app, set it up on my phone, and waited for her to return, wondering how to approach her phone. If there is evidence, it's most likely there in her messages and calls. Around 2 p.m., I heard Helen's car drive into our yard. The click of her heels on the brick path echoed all the way to the door. I looked up as she appeared in the doorway of the living room. For a split second, our eyes met, and I saw something nervousness. Fear. The moment was brief, but I immediately knew she was hiding something. She dropped her purse near the sofa and walked into the kitchen. I put on my warmest smile and offered to pour her some coffee. She nodded gratefully. We sat at the kitchen island, silently sipping our cups. "How's Alfie?" she asked, as if to fill the silence. "He's doing well. We were thinking about fishing while you're on your dance trip, if that's okay with you. By the way, Patty is interested in your trip. If you have space available, she would like to come with you. Can you find out and let her know?" I noticed Helen's face turn slightly red before she answered. "Oh, what a pity, but in the morning I found out that all the places were already taken. I will be sure to let Patty know when the next trip is arranged." She quickly regained her composure, her expression changing to almost defiant, but soon returned to normal. Helen finished her coffee and looked at me. I pretended to be engrossed in the sports page of the newspaper. "I'll go take a shower. Feeling a little dirty, okay, honey?" "Of course," I answered without raising my head. She stood up and headed upstairs to take a shower. I wondered how she could have gotten dirty by lunchtime, but decided to take a moment to grab her cell phone from her purse. 10 minutes later, I installed a tracking program on her phone and everything worked. The most important part was completed, and I quickly scanned her messages. There were several messages too, and from a couple of contacts sent and received this morning after I left for Alfie's. I wrote down the ID and contact numbers. Interestingly, the IDs were just initials, but they matched the names of the men from the club. In a way, I was relieved. She had only been messaging 3 people. Perhaps it was a small group. I read the messages, but they were just short phrases like, "Everything is fine," without any details. I didn't know how long she would be in the shower, so I left it at that for now. The main thing is that I confirmed that they are in touch and found out how. That was enough for now. I also noticed her email account and wrote down her username. The password was encrypted, but I knew it was 8 characters long. I'll deal with this later. Finally, I checked the call log. Taking the numbers that I wrote down, I saw that there were many calls to the same numbers. Okay, that's enough for now. The next couple of days were stressful for me, but in some ways disappointing as nothing much seemed to be happening. My head was filled with thoughts, guesses, questions. Why? How long? How much in total? Every day was difficult. I was completely exhausted. I avoided any intimacy with Helen, and to my surprise, it turned out to be easier than I expected. She gave me strange looks a couple of times, but didn't say anything. The trip was planned for the weekend, and by Wednesday Helen had already packed her dance costumes. She seemed to be looking forward to this trip. Although I didn't say anything, I kept a close eye on everything. After her next night at the club, she returned home later than usual, her face slightly flushed. I was sitting with a large glass of Jack Daniels when she walked in. "Did you have fun today, dear?" I asked casually. Yes, everything was fine. We discussed plans for the weekend, travel, hotels, and all that. I didn't ask any questions, expecting her to fill in the details, but that never happened, so I dropped the subject. She didn't know that I already had all the information she needed. Alfie's wife did her research and accidentally saw a copy of the hotel reservation from Brian's wife. Looks like there are only 4 of them going. How nice. On Thursday, I went to see Alfie. "Well, what's the plan?" he asked as Patty poured our drinks. "I want to kick their asses, Alfie, but I'm afraid I'll kill someone. I don't want to go to jail. I will try to do everything quietly, humiliate them a little, ruin all their fun. This is childish revenge, but what other options do I have? It's over between me and Helen. After this weekend, I will never forgive her. I'm going to pack all her things and take them to her parents. She will never cross the threshold of my house again." "No way." Alfie looked at me, his eyes widening when he saw how angry I was. Patty stood behind me, her hands on my shoulders as I tried to control myself. I broke down and cried for the first time since I found out what was happening. Patty put her arm around my neck and whispered in my ear, "Hold on, big guy. We are with you, no matter what happens." Her touch reminded me of what I had missed in my life. I couldn't remember the last time Helen and I hugged or even just touched each other. We had sex for 2 weeks or more. Tears streamed down my face as I sobbed silently. Gathering my strength, I pulled myself together. The pain in my chest, where my heart used to be, continued, but I knew I had to get through the next few days and weeks. It will be hard tomorrow when I see her off. I know what she's up to, but I'll have to let it happen. Stopping her now won't erase what she's already done or what she'll do in the future. Our marriage is broken. There is no turning back. Damn bitch. I clenched my fists as Patty continued to hold my shoulders and Alfie put his hand on mine. "Well, Rick, let's give these motherfuckers some heat. We will find a way to take revenge. They will not escape responsibility." On Friday, I left work early as Helen was leaving at 4 p.m. Brian and his wife were picking her up, and Helen planned to leave her car with them and then go together. This was quite convenient because if she decided to return earlier or go somewhere else, it would be easier for her to use her car. I helped Helen load her 2 suitcases into the car. She looked excited, but somewhat distracted. I felt her looking at me from time to time as I put my suitcases in the trunk. Turning around, I smiled at her with my best actor's smile. "Are you sure you don't mind me leaving, Rick?" she asked, looking into my eyes as if she was looking for something. "Why should I be against it? It's not a dirty weekend, right? You love dancing and have long wanted to go. I only regret that I can't go there with you. Alfie and I are also going fishing with friends, so I'll have something to do too." She looked at me strangely. Was it really the guilt that flashed in her eyes? Perhaps her conscience began to trouble her. At that moment, her phone rang, interrupting our conversation. She rummaged through her purse until she found it and looked at the screen. "They are already waiting for me, dear. I need to run." She put her arms around my neck and kissed me as if it was our last kiss. We haven't kissed like this in forever. I looked into her eyes and saw guilt. I wonder what she saw in my eyes' sadness. She got into the car, smiled at me, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway. I waved after her, and tears flowed down my cheeks. I knew it was over. I turned around and walked into the garage, pulled out the boxes I had prepared, and began carrying them upstairs to our bedroom. I pulled her clothes out of her closet and drawers, collected her makeup and toiletries, stuffed everything into boxes, taped them shut, and carried them downstairs. An hour later, all her things were packed and piled up, ready to go. I sat up, breathing heavily, when the house phone rang. "Rick, this is Alfie. How are you?" "Everything is ready, friend. I'll just catch my breath a little. Okay? Just don't indulge in alcohol. We still need to think through an alibi." I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, okay? Okay, I'll be ready. Now I will take care of taking her things to her parents. By the way, I checked the locator. She actually went to that bastard's house, so we can deal with this quickly. See you in the morning. I sat in the silence of the empty house, feeling its emptiness, and watched the clock hands slowly creep by. It was almost 6 in the evening. She had left 2 hours ago. I checked the locator again and saw that the bastard still had it, less than 3 miles from our home. Maybe they decided to spend a little time together before heading out. My heart sank in pain again. Damn bitch, she doesn't even understand what she did to me. Fuck you. I threw the glass across the room, breaking it on the wedding photograph that stood on the mantelpiece. I looked at the shards of glass and the remains of my marriage for a long time, and then abruptly left the house and got into the car. I went to Helen's parents. It was already around 7:30 p.m. when I got there. As always, they were happy to see me, but asked where their daughter was. She went to Blackpool with a couple of people from the club. They are going to dance in the ballroom. This is amazing. If I had known, I would have gone too, her mother said. Yes, that's what I said too, I answered with a smile. But it's okay, I'm going fishing with Alfie this weekend. I just wanted to tell you so that you know if you happen to stop by our house. Thank you, Rick, we appreciate it, her father added. One more thing. We were sorting things out here, and I found several boxes that Helen asked me to give to you. Can I pick them up tomorrow morning? Of course, we'll leave them in the garage, and she'll sort it out when she gets back. Thank you. Then see you tomorrow. We said goodbye, and I drove home, feeling even more sad. They were good people, and I decided that I would write them a letter explaining, since after tomorrow I will hardly be able to look them in the eyes. Saturday morning, I woke up with a heavy heart and a throbbing head. I hardly slept, because before my eyes there were images of what my wife could have been doing with George in their hotel room. I knew that this morning I would receive the photographs from the detective I hired earlier in the week. I agreed with him for 2 days starting on Friday evening. He was inexpensive, but seemed smart and knew the area, including the hotel, well. After I gave him all the details, he took a position outside the hotel, and I waited for updates. After checking my email, I saw a message with an attachment. There were about a dozen photographs. They showed Helen sitting at a bar with George, then walking towards a hotel, and even one shot of them kissing outside their room door. There was another couple with them. They all looked very happy. The last photo captured the moment they entered their rooms. That was enough for me. It's over. Alfie pulled up, and we started loading the boxes into his truck. By noon, we had unloaded everything from Helen's parents. After that, we went back to my house for coffee. We need to go to the club, show up there, and confirm our alibi, Rick. It's time to go, remember, we're supposedly fishing, Alfie said. We loaded the fishing gear into his truck and headed to the club. For an hour, we communicated with as many club members as possible, talking about fishing until we ourselves were tired of this topic. We also confirmed that Alfie's truck with fishing rods on top was caught on CCTV. Everything was done. We left the club around 14 o'clock and stopped at my house so I could get into my car. We drove to a lake a few miles outside of town where we made sure the owners had seen us. We bought date-stamped tickets and then found a quiet place to spread out. The lake was calm, which was good for us. We set up tents, fishing rods, and bait, creating the appearance of a camp where we were actually going to fish. In the evening, our friend Gaz arrived. Gaz was an old friend. We had known each other since elementary school. He was one of the few people I trusted unconditionally. Well, I'm here. Do you have beer? He looked around, grabbed the can, opened it, and took a long sip, plopping down in one of the chairs. It's great that you're on time, Alfie said, watching Gaz quickly drain the can. Are you with us or what? Is everything ready? Yes, the fishing rods are there, the alarms are working. Well, come on, roll already, I'll stay here. See you when you get back. Gaz came up to me and hugged me tightly. Hold on, brother. Do everything you need to do, and we'll rest tomorrow. I nodded silently. He knew my pain. His wife also left him a couple of years ago. Gaz then could not restrain himself and beat her lover before he was stopped. This man was their mutual acquaintance from school, and the enmity between them continues to this day. His wife left town soon after. Gaz would take her back if he could, but he is consumed by his thirst for revenge. Alfie and I got into the car and headed to Blackpool. While he drove, I called the detective to get the latest news. He said that he had additional photographs and even a video, which he somehow managed to obtain from the hotel owner. There was footage that left little doubt about what the group was doing. According to him, they indulged in sex all day and exchanged partners. I thanked him and asked him to send the materials in the morning. Alfie noticed the look on my face after the call. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Why, Alfie? Why is she doing this?" "Who knows, Rick? But it is what it is. We know what to do. Get your act together." We arrived in Blackpool around 11:30 p.m. and drove slowly up to the hotel, looking for the cars of those on the list. We parked 100 yards away, found their cars, and got to work. With surgical precision and restrained chuckles, we did our job. Everything from sand to sugar got into the tanks of George and Brian's cars. The tires were flat, and we left scratches on one of the cars, hinting at what was happening. The job took a matter of minutes, and laughing like children, we left unnoticed. Later, we returned to the lake, where Gaz was already sleeping, and empty cans were lying around him. Alfie just grinned. Looks like he decided not to go fishing. The gas just groaned as we climbed into the tent to get some sleep. "Everything is fine," he muttered. "Everything is fine, buddy. Sleep," I replied. On Sunday morning, we woke up after a couple of hours of sleep. Everything was covered in thick dew, and the air was filled with the smell of frying eggs and bacon. I stood up and Patty stood at the camp stove, preparing breakfast. "I thought you boys would appreciate a hot breakfast, so I came," she said, dragging out the stove and breakfast ingredients. "By the way, the owner of the lake and his wife will come by soon, so I asked them to stop by." "You can't have too many friends at times like this, right?" I smiled as I climbed out of my sleeping bag. She was a true angel and incredibly smart. "How the hell did you manage to marry such a woman, Alfie?" "I don't know myself, friend. They didn't even ask me. It just happened somehow. I loved these guys, even Gaz. Yes, I lost my wife, but I still had real friends. The owner of the lake came over with his wife, and they joined us for a cup of hot coffee and a bacon sandwich. We took a group photo in front of a lake with 2 large carp, which Gaz caught before he finished his beer and went to bed. What a guy, and the photo turned out great. We were sitting enjoying the warm late summer sun when suddenly we heard the sound of a mobile phone. "Here it is," Alfie grinned, looking at his watch. It was a little after 11 a.m. "To hell with her," I grinned, and we giggled again like children. The call stopped and a new message signal sounded. A minute later, the phone rang again. We were both already rolling with laughter. The calls and messages continued for about 10 minutes, and then everything died down. "I bet they're on the move now, buddy. It probably took a while to get the tires in order. Oh, I forgot. They can't go, right?" Laughter rang out again, this time to the point of tears. Gaz and Patty looked at us as we tried to explain what was so funny. Half an hour later, the calls started again. We laughed again, ignoring the messages. Alfie's phone rang. It was the expected call. "Yes, is everything done?" he asked, nodding at me, and we slapped each other's hands. Gaz looked at us. "Have you changed all the locks, buddy?" He laughed too. We stayed by the lake until noon. After the morning wave of calls, there was silence for several hours. We assumed that their cars were being cleaned up and they were already on their way home. This was confirmed when I checked the tracker on Helen's phone. She had indeed left Blackpool and was driving along the highway. Well, it's been fun so far. The next call was from Helen. Apparently, she had reached George's house. I guessed my engraving on her car was impressive. Ha. My phone filled up with messages and texts, but I ignored them all. I wasn't ready to talk to her. I wanted her to feel as confused as I felt. I wanted her to feel guilty. I was getting angrier by the minute, and Alfie was watching me closely. Take it easy, brother. Let it cook for a bit. Sooner or later, she will call her parents. Let everything go according to plan. Hold on. I faked a smile for my friends who looked worried. Sooner or later, everything will reach her parents. I knew Patty would take my side. This bitch had to suffer, and this was just the first step. After checking the tracker, I saw that she had somehow made it home. A new wave of calls began, which again made us laugh while we drank Jack Daniels. It appears to have been a busy day for Helen. Her lovers were left without cars, leaving her 100 miles from home, hence the first wave of calls. Then, when she got home and discovered that her car had also been destroyed, a second wave of calls began. And finally, returning to her previous address, she discovered that her keys no longer fit. This prompted a third series of calls. At this point, I had 34 missed calls from her, several dozen messages, and at least a dozen texts, each one growing more irritated and desperate. Great. By 9 p.m., the calls had stopped. We looked at each other, waiting for her next move. She had to call her parents. It was inevitable. You can sleep in the guest room, Rick. The bed is ready. I don't want you to come home and do something stupid, Patty said, refilling my glass. Okay, I'll stay until tomorrow, and then I'll decide what to do. I also need to think about work. Take a couple of days off. If Helen finds out you're home, it'll complicate things. Great idea. The calls stopped around 11:30 p.m. I checked the tracker and saw that Helen was with George again. I did not predict this move. I thought she would go to her parents. Apparently, she decided not to let them in on what was happening for now. Well, let's see how long she can hide it. Later, I had a couple more drinks with Alfie and went to bed. Sleep did come, but it was disturbing, filled with visions of Helen and George. I woke up at 7:30 a.m. with a slight headache, but overall felt fine. The events of the weekend left a deep impression, and I was both exhausted and on edge. This strange combination of feelings prevented me from thinking clearly. Patty prepared a hearty breakfast, which I greedily ate. Is today the day, Rick? She asked, setting the table. Maybe. I want to check what's going on at my house, but I think Helen will show up there sooner or later. I can't avoid her forever, but I want her to talk to her parents first. She will do it, trust me. And if not, I will tell you everything myself without hiding anything. Are you sure you want to go this route? Asked Patty. Maybe there is a chance to fix everything. Whatever you decide, Alfie and I will support you, but please think carefully before you go so far that there is no turning back. Patty, I've already thought about everything she did. I have photos from a private detective, and I'm also waiting for a video. I know what she did, but I don't know why. This is what eats away at me. What did I do to make her do this? I felt my emotions getting out of control again, and my eyes began to fill with tears. The pain in my chest got worse as I thought about how she was with those bastards. I made a plan to ruin their weekend. Yes, it was childish, but it was better than going to jail for murder, although I still want to tear them all apart. Patty hugged me tightly, and I felt how much I missed it. I was on edge, but I needed to stay calm and strong. This day promised to be hard. Today could be the day, I muttered. I turned on my phone and sat in Alfie's home office, connecting my laptop to the Wi-Fi. I heard Alfie talking to Patty as I opened my email. He looked out the door. Are you okay, Rick? He asked, looking at me. He looked over my shoulder and saw what I was doing. Are you sure you want to see this? I nodded, looking at him sullenly, and opened the message. The letter from the private detective contained a brief summary of the situation, as well as an attached archive with photographs and videos. When I opened the photographs, my heart began to beat wildly, and tears rolled down my cheeks. Alfie put his hand on my shoulder as I looked at the screen. The slideshow started with photos of Helen and George outside a hotel, then of them with Brian and his wife in a bar. They looked at ease, but then they started changing partners, hugging and kissing. Clearly, this group felt very comfortable with each other. Then the photos switched to shots from the room. My breathing hitched and my stomach began to churn. With each new photo, my marriage became more and more in ruins. I heard Patty gasp behind me. She entered the room, covering her mouth with her hand, her face covered in tears. She looked at me, and within a second the three of us were hugging each other, sharing the pain of my broken marriage. Alfie turned off the slideshow. "I'm sorry, Rick, I'm so sorry." What the hell is she thinking? And with these two bastards, too. I couldn't answer him, choking with emotions, trying to come to my senses. My heart became stone. I could not move, numb from my pain. Everything is decided for me. I'm not going to forgive her. Never. I will ruin her life as much as I can. My friends saw my sadness turn into rage, and they were afraid for me. I was also afraid, but I didn't care about the consequences. The phone ringing interrupted the moment. It was Helen. I answered without thinking. "Yes," I said sharply. "Thank God, Rick, are you okay? I came back last night, and someone destroyed my car. I called a taxi to get home, but the lock on the door was jammed, and I couldn't get into the house. I called you, but you didn't answer. Are you still fishing? What's happening?" "Yes, something is happening," I answered without emotion. "Rick, what do you mean? Are you home? I need to go in and change, or I'll have to take the day off." "Yeah, maybe you should take a day off. I won't go home until I make a decision." "Solution? What are you talking about? You're acting strange." "About my future," I answered, pausing. "About the future? Why are you discussing this with Alfie and Patty and not with your wife?" Her voice became irritated, and I felt how she began to understand what was happening. "I'll let you know when I make a decision." With these words, I hung up the call. My face remained cold. I don't know how I restrained myself from shouting at her. My grief kept me from acting rashly. I put the phone down and it rang again. I turned off the call, but it continued to vibrate, receiving new calls. Helen never mentioned what was painted on her car or how George's car was destroyed. She was clearly trying to hide what was happening until she understood the situation. Now she knew something was wrong. Perhaps she and George discussed it and thought about how to minimize the damage or move on. My heart sank again at the thought, but my anger only grew. I called the lawyer and made an appointment to discuss the divorce. I also called in to work and took a week off. To be continued. After I agreed with the lawyer and took a leave of absence, I began to plan my further actions. I knew Helen would try to find me, perhaps as early as today. However, I wanted her to first have to face the consequences of her actions. I checked my emails, sent a few work messages to get things done, and then switched to another, more personal plan. I decided to send copies of the photos and videos I received from the private investigator to our club committee and as many members as possible. I had a general email address for contacting club members, so I was confident that this information would reach at least a few hundred people. I also thought about her colleagues. There were definitely people there who would love to know what Helen does in her free time. Yes, it was a drastic step, but I understood. Rumors would still reach them sooner or later. Let it happen the way I want, and not through whispers and speculation. I wanted everything to be very clear, so that the conversation would not be about me as a miserable cuckold, but about how deceitful and hypocritical Helen turned out to be. As I left the office, I took a cup of coffee from Patty. She looked worried. "Well, Rick, you started. You need to be prepared for how this all plays out. Are you sure you want to go all the way?" "Yes, Patty, I started the process, and now it's impossible to stop." Alfie and Patty looked at each other. "Do you understand that she is most likely already on her way here?" Alfie noted. "Yes, I know, so I'm going to leave in 20 minutes. I need to give her time to get the first reactions to my messages. I think it will start today. I haven't told her parents anything yet. Let her explain herself to them." I looked at my watch, finished my coffee, hugged my friends, and hurried to the car. "We'll act like we don't know anything. For Helen, we just went fishing. Of course, it won't last long, but it should give you time." I quickly got onto the highway, trying to distance myself as much as possible while the situation began to develop. My phone kept vibrating from constant calls. Stopping at a gas station near South Mims, I checked the tracker to see where Helen was. Alfie already had it. I smiled, imagining her getting the fishing story my friends had to tell. This must have driven her crazy. I knew her confusion would grow as colleagues and friends from the club began to receive my messages. I giggled, realizing that I had set off a whole chain of events. It was like a game, but I understood that this was not a game, but my life, and everything was deadly serious. Checking the tracker again, I saw that Helen had left Alfie's house and was heading to George's. Damn bitch, she can't stay away from this bastard. I felt anger boiling inside again. It was around 12:30, so my emails should have already reached their recipients. I expected the answers to start coming soon. A message from Helen appeared. It seems to have begun. Great, I chuckled again and dialed Alfie. Alfie, this is Rick. How did it go? Damn it, buddy, she's going crazy. We stuck to the fishing story, but Patty nearly lost it a few times. She almost hit her when Helen said she had a good time in Blackpool and didn't understand what was wrong with you. I laughed. It looks like she's trying to turn everything around as if nothing happened. Did she even say anything about the car or where she slept last night? Oh yes, she said she spent the night with her parents, as if we don't know, and nothing about the car, as if it never existed. She came here by taxi. The driver was waiting for her outside. Just hang in there, Rick. Everything is going according to plan. Yes, I will do so. Thank you both. You really helped. Her game won't last long. I'm sure her friends and colleagues will start calling her any minute. I'll lay low until tomorrow, and then I'll meet with my lawyer. I'll call you then. Thanks, buddy. Say hi to Patty. I headed down the M25, turned towards Heathrow, and found a small hotel that was suitable for an overnight stay for a day or two. I took my bag out of the trunk and checked in. The room was simple but comfortable. The silence seemed overwhelming. I laid out my laptop, phone, plugged in the chargers, and headed to the nearby pub. It was already after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and breakfast was long overdue, so I ordered a beer and a T-bone steak. I sat in a corner booth and sipped my beer. It felt a little sharp, but went down easily. I was looking out the window at the green fields and picnic tables when the waitress brought my steak. She smiled at me and walked away, swaying her hips. She was cute, with curves, but I didn't pay any attention to it. I felt dead inside, numb, like nothing mattered. I ate the steak slowly. It was good, but still not the same as the ones Helen cooked. Another stab in the heart as I began to remember all the little things I would miss about her. She was a wonderful wife, beautiful, flirty, sexy, everything a man could want. Over the last year or so, things have probably become calmer. We both focused on work and spent more time on our careers. Financially, everything was in order. Separate bank accounts, credit cards, enough money. We were comfortable, but our intimate life suffered. Now I understand that we have been growing apart in recent months. I remembered how she started dancing again because of her passion for fitness. It was Brian's wife who started taking her to the gym and then to the dance club. Damn it, how could I be so blind? I slammed my fist on the table and my beer mug shook. The people at the bar looked at me strangely. I became confused, calmed down, and continued to think about what exactly went wrong. I had a couple more beers before heading back to my room. There I sat on the bed, waiting for the kettle to boil, and poured myself some coffee. As I tried to collect my thoughts, I came to the conclusion that it all started with Brian and his wife. They were the ones who arranged the exchange of partners. This explained why they switched partners with George. And George, not having a regular partner, used my wife in his exchanges. I understood who, but I still didn't understand why. I looked at the phone, which was still blinking from the messages I had received. It's time to take a look at them. The messages started from yesterday, almost all from Helen, until finally, late in the evening, one appeared from George's number. I opened it and listened to it. I can't prove it, but I'm sure it was you who wrecked my car. I won't forget. I think you already know that I've been sleeping with Helen for the last few months. She's good in bed, and she likes it. Yes, me and Brian did it with her a few times. She's a great woman of easy virtue, and I'm going to enjoy her even more. Do what you want, I don't care. She's in the shower now, but we'll continue soon. See you later, sucker. I saved the message. Now I was furious. That bastard was worth going to jail, I thought. Apparently, he left this message while Helen was away. The rest of the messages were from Helen, first after she found the door locked, then after our conversation this morning. There were a few more messages from people I didn't know. 2 messages were from club committee members who were outraged by the behavior of the members. I was informed that those involved would be expelled from the club immediately. That was nice to know. There were also messages from Helen's colleagues asking if it was true. They were shocked, offended, and outraged. I typed a message for everyone. Helen joined the partner exchange group without my knowledge and is now enjoying new partners outside of marriage. I don't intend to tolerate this. From now on, we are no longer together. I forwarded the responses I received to Helen's email. Let her see what her friends and colleagues think. I closed my laptop, lay down on the bed, and started crying. Her betrayal swallowed me whole, clouded my mind, made my heart ache. I felt anxious and angry at the same time. My thoughts were spinning around everything that happened. When I finally fell asleep, it was a restless sleep, filled with visions of Helen and her betrayal. But to my surprise, I slept until almost 8 and a full 9 hours, which is rare for me. When I woke up, I showered, shaved, and looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection resembled a man who had aged 10 years in just a few days. There was a cold, determined look in my eyes, but my face reflected deep sadness. To hell with it, I muttered. Today I'll deal with this shit. I got dressed, had breakfast at the pub, and an hour later I left the hotel, heading home. My head was busy with thoughts, but inside I felt a strange peace, as if an invisible shield was protecting me. I will need this peace of mind. I met with a lawyer, told him my story, and he immediately began preparing the necessary documents. I was not ready to listen to any counseling or attempts at reconciliation, and I abruptly stopped all talk about it. My lawyer quickly realized that I was determined. I informed him that I wanted to file for divorce on grounds of adultery, naming George and Brian as co-defendants. I didn't care how much it would complicate the case, but I wanted those responsible to answer for their actions. Having finished my business with the lawyer, I returned home. I stopped in front of the house where a week ago I lived with my wife, and now I knew her only as a stranger. Her feet will never set foot in this house again. I thought about selling my house, but then changed my mind. No, damn it, I'll keep it, I told myself. Once inside, I looked around. The house seemed empty, and not just physically. It seemed as if his very soul had left him. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Helen. This was her first call of the day, almost 12 o'clock. She probably spent the morning with George. I chuckled, imagining them enjoying each other while I went through this terrible time. I settled into my chair, took a deep breath, and answered. Yes. You bastard. What have you done? Everyone is calling me about some photos and videos of me and George. Why didn't you talk to me first? They call me from work, friends. Even at the club, they told me that I was no longer a welcome guest. Why, Rick? Listen, you damned woman of easy virtue. I began with icy calm. I know everything. Understood. I know everything. Who, where, when. I have photos of all 4 of you. I even have a video. All I need is a damn t-shirt as a souvenir. Do you want me to talk to you? About what, Helen? About how you sleep with other men, and I have to accept it. Never. Do you understand? We need to talk, Rick. Please let me explain. This has to stop. Stop. You still have no idea how it all started, I snapped. What do you mean? Her voice trembled. You and your friends pissed me off. Now you can fail, or I will make you do it. Understood? Don't be stupid, Rick. You're just angry and overreacting. We need to talk. Please? Too harsh. You can also tell me that I'm going too far. Look, I've already started divorce proceedings. Do you want me to repeat it? I filed for divorce. My petition names your cronies, and I don't care how difficult it makes the process. Our marriage is over. Do you understand everything? Divorce? But why? We? It was just. You can't do this, Rick. I can, Helen, and I will. It was you who destroyed our marriage, and I'm just putting an end to this farce. Rick, please think about it. Where will I live? My friends. They know everything. Even at work, everyone talks about it. You told them, please stop this, Rick. Not everyone knows yet, right? What? Who doesn't know yet? Panic appeared in her voice. Oh God, you didn't tell my parents. Say no. No, I didn't tell you. I thought it would be better if you explained everything to them yourself. Tell them how their beloved daughter became a star. You have an hour to do this, or I will do it myself. I'll send them both photos and videos. Do you understand? Only quiet sobbing could be heard in the receiver. And one last thing, Helen. I know you live with George. I hope you will be very happy. I'm sure he has many friends with whom he will share you. As he himself said in his message, he will sleep with you, and when he can't, one of his friends will take his place. Thank you for this message. I have already forwarded it to my lawyer. You betrayed me, bitch. Get lost and do what you do best. I don't want to talk to you anymore. When you're ready to tell me why you did it, call me. But don't waste my time. You have an hour. But Rick, I love. She began, but I interrupted the call. I sat back in my chair, feeling anger mixed with complete exhaustion. Well, now she knows everything. Even though the phone is ringing off the hook, I did everything I could. I sat in the chair, feeling empty. My heart ached and I was exhausted. Tears began to form in my eyes again as I thought about what I had lost. The house that was once filled with love and laughter now seemed empty and cold, just like my life. The telephone broke the silence. I looked at the screen, wondering who it could be. Slowly getting up, I picked up the phone, heading back to my chair. Hello? Rick, it's me. The voice on the other end was familiar, but sounded depressed. It was Helen's father. Helen just called. She told us. The most incredible story. She asked me to contact you to let you know that she told everything. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I fought with myself to hold back my sobs. She wanted you to know that we are now aware. Honestly, I don't need any photos or videos. I understand that this was your attempt to protect yourself, but I already understood everything. Now it's clear to me what was in those boxes that you brought to us. Tell me, son, is there any way to solve this differently? Maybe you can talk. I understand that this is hard for you, but maybe there is a chance to fix everything. I took a deep breath, trying to collect my thoughts. Thank you, Dad. You have always been my support. But I don't think there's anything to talk about. This was not a random incident. It was a betrayal that lasted a long time. I can't forgive this. I understand, son. If you need anything, call us. We are always here. Thank you. I will send you an email with information. You can watch it if you have any doubts about what she is saying. But I have to go. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up and collapsed back into my chair, sobbing. Tears flowed freely, echoing in the empty house. Evening came, and the room filled with darkness. I was still sitting in the chair, realizing the depth of my loss. My phone vibrated again. I looked at the screen, and it was George. His message left no doubt that he continued to provoke me. Well, cuckold, are you still sulking? Ha ha. Helen is with me now, so stop being an idiot and get over it. You know Brian, don't you? I'll have guests tonight, and we'll make sure she doesn't get bored. Good night, cuckold. I gritted my teeth as I read his message. This bastard was enjoying the situation, humiliating me and using Helen. My anger boiled over again. I understood that George was using Helen for his own purposes. Most likely, she did not even know about his intentions. I needed to warn her, but I didn't know how she would react, or did I even want to get involved. Then I made an unexpected decision. I called Brian. He and his wife practiced partner swapping and had no reason to hide their actions. Hello? Brian's voice rang out. You don't know me, but I'm Helen's husband. Don't hang up, okay? Listen, buddy, we are all adults and did everything by mutual consent. If you have a problem, It is better to discuss it with your wife. Listen, Brian, my name is Rick. I didn't know what was going on until last weekend. Now I'm sorting things out with my wife, but that's not why I'm calling you. I need to find out about George. What kind of person is he? I know he used my wife as an exchange partner, but what else is he doing? Listen, Rick, your wife is your problem. I've only known George for a few months, and frankly, I don't want to deal with him anymore. He gets too intrusive, if you know what I mean. Partner swapping is one thing, but it starts to require more than just partner swapping, if you know what I mean. We have never used any drugs, but he has. Over the weekend, he just couldn't stop. My wife started to worry, and so did I. Did he say anything about joint activities with other couples? This may seem strange, but it's important for me to know. Yes, I mentioned it. He even suggested something like large meetings, but my wife and I were not interested in that. Of course, we sometimes experiment, but such things are beyond the bounds for us. I don't think he suggested this to Helen. It would have been unexpected. He discussed this with me separately, even wanting to organize something as a surprise for the girls. I refused, and after that I decided that we had enough. If you're asking this, does that mean something happened? Yes, it happened, and I intend to sort it out before the situation gets worse. Understood. Good luck. If we can help in any way, let us know. Sorry, friend. I hung up. It was almost 7 p.m. I called Alfie and told him the latest news. 20 minutes later, we were on our way to George's house. We parked a few houses away from his house. Did you take all the equipment? Of course, I took it. Do you think I'm a fool? Everything is in place. We climbed into the back of his pickup truck and changed into overalls, balaclavas, training gloves, and latex gloves over them. The boots had metal toes. The bits are a bonus from Alfie, who thought they were necessary. I looked at my watch. It was almost 8:30 p.m. Where did the time go? I hoped that we would still have time. One way or another, everything that happened had to end today, perhaps forever. For God's sake, Rick, control yourself. Don't lose control, or we could end up in jail. We need to be taught a lesson, that's all. No matter what Helen did, she didn't deserve to be humiliated like that. Do you understand me? Got it, I answered, feeling the adrenaline going off scale. We go in through the back door, no talking. Let's quickly pick her up and leave, okay? It was already dark outside. We got out of the car and walked towards George's house. They climbed over the gate, leaving it open for a quick exit. As we approached the glass door in the backyard, we heard groans and laughter from inside. I froze. Damn, we're late. Alfie poked me with a bat, and we headed for the kitchen door. The handle turned easily. Alfie looked at me in surprise as he pulled his mask down, his face lit up with a smile. We quietly made our way through the kitchen towards the light coming from the living room. The sounds and laughter of the men made it clear that they were all enjoying themselves. Camera flashes indicated that someone was taking photographs. I couldn't stand it. Alfie looked at me, counting off with his fingers, 3, 2, 1. We burst into the room with the beats. We burst into the room and everything was chaos. The situation escalated when we burst into the room. George was incapacitated within seconds. Alfie dealt with the man standing next to him with composure. The third participant suddenly disappeared, but a woman, Joyce, appeared in his place. Two men were lying on the floor, completely neutralized. We quickly became convinced that the danger had been neutralized and began to decide what to do next. Joyce was clearly frightened, and we made it clear to her that it was best for her not to interfere. She confirmed that those present were under the influence of substances, which explained Helen's condition. We collected all the recording devices and destroyed them so that no one else could use these materials. I then carefully dressed Helen, who was still unconscious. Taking her with us, we left the house, leaving the situation under control. In the truck, we changed into bags and threw them into a nearby trash container. Helen began to come to her senses while we gave her water. We drove up to her parents' house. Alfie knocked on the door, and when it opened, I threw Helen onto my shoulder and quickly entered. The look on her mother's face was unforgettable. I carried Helen upstairs to her old room and laid her on the bed. I felt my eyes fill with tears. How could the woman I loved for so long end up in this state? What? Rick, what's happening? Her mother followed me upstairs, followed by her father. Helen needs both of you right now. I can't explain everything right now, but she was pulled into an extremely dangerous situation, and it could have ended much worse. She may not thank me, but I still care about her despite everything she's done. Take care of her, please. Now, burn this. I handed my mother a bag of overalls. Alfie and I left the house. Back in the truck, we looked at each other, grinning, and slapped each other's hands. Well, we definitely ruined their evening. What do you think? Asked Alfie. Yes, I grinned. Now go home, James, and don't spare the horses. I spent the night in my bed, listening to the silence, broken only by the ticking of the clock. I opened my eyes and looked at the dial. It was a little after 9 in the morning. I slept for almost 9 hours. This was unusual for me. I usually slept a maximum of 6 hours, but today I felt completely exhausted. My hand slid across the empty space on the bed where my wife had previously slept. At these moments I was overcome with pain. I remembered how she left my life and cried again, realizing that I had lost a friend, a partner, a love, my whole life and future. The phone started ringing. Annoyed by the sound, I climbed out of bed and answered. Hello, I said sharply. Rick, this is Patty. Are you okay? Sorry, Patty, I didn't mean to be rude. No, I'm not fine. Everything is just too hard, I feel lost. But I can handle it. Listen, get ready and come to us. We're having a late breakfast, you need some food. We'll talk about what to do next. We're waiting for you, so come on, get moving. She hung up. I looked in the mirror. The face looking back at me was pale and haggard. I pulled myself together, took a shower, got dressed, and went to see my friends. I got into the car and went to Alfie and Patty. The road was strangely calming. The window was slightly open, fresh air was blowing on the face, and active music was playing loudly from the speakers. This cheered me up a little. While I was driving, my thoughts took me to the children. With all the events of the last few days, I barely thought about them. I needed to contact both of them urgently. Ryan was at a football competition and wasn't due back until next week. I understood that I needed to talk to him, explain that the situation at home had changed a lot. But how do you tell him that his mother was involved in something like this? Rachel was another problem. She was relaxing with her friends, having fun before leaving for university. I wasn't sure if I would be able to contact her. Her cell phone is most likely not within network coverage. Thinking about how to tell the children that their mother betrayed our family was unbearable. Patty met me at the door. Her hug was tight, as if she wanted to embrace all my pain and sadness. This was exactly what I needed. You are a wonderful person, Rick, she said, holding my hands in hers. Never forget this. It's not your fault that Helen screwed up like that, and not all women are like that. Patty, leave him alone. Rick, go sit at the table. Time for breakfast, Alfie interjected, rolling his eyes. We sat down at the table, and I greedily attacked the food. It was exactly the hot, filling breakfast I needed after the last stressful few days. Everything is quiet for now, buddy. No police, no surprises. I hope it stays that way, Alfie said, taking a sip of his coffee. Thank you both for everything, I replied, looking at them with sincere gratitude. I love you both. Okay, we've had enough of these pleasantries. We need to decide what to do next, Alfie chuckled. I haven't seen Helen's car at home yet. We need to deal with this. I'm not sure if I want to send her to Helen's parents or just leave her where she is now. I don't even know how I feel about her. Patty put her hand on mine. Rick, the last few days have been hell for you. Maybe you should take a little break before doing anything. First, we need to make sure George doesn't cause any more problems. And of course, you will have to talk to the children and Helen. And then either you will figure it out or... Patty, I can't forgive what she did. Even after everything that happened yesterday, she did it of her own free will. She cheated on me for 6 months with 2 men, and maybe others. No matter how much I love her, I can't forgive her. But I couldn't leave her where she could get hurt either. Perhaps, Rick, she wanted it herself. We don't know all the circumstances, Patty added carefully. Her words hurt me, but I knew she might be right. Maybe Helen really wanted this lifestyle. This fact was incomprehensible to me. Never before had she shown signs of such desire. I sat thoughtfully, digesting her words. If this is true, then I don't know her at all. If she chose this path, then we have no future. I've already begun to act to strike back, and I can't imagine this getting any worse. You'll have to talk to her, Rick, Alfie intervened. I shouldn't, I replied. If I need to know something, I can talk to her parents or through a lawyer. Now my main priority is children. Ryan's coming back in a week, and I need to tell him, but I don't know how. And I'll probably text Rachel to contact me as soon as she can. Do you want me to call her parents and find out how they are doing? Patty suggested. No, I'll do it myself. At the same time, I'll explain to them my plans for the children. I went into the office and dialed Helen's parents. The father answered almost immediately. Hello, how are you doing today? Helen is still sleeping, which is probably for the best. When she wakes up, we'll clean her up and listen to her version of events. I'm sorry, son. Thank you for what you did last night. I hope this doesn't cause you problems. I don't think this will happen. These guys now know I'm not kidding. The fact that I broke up their party before things got too far should serve as a warning to them. We'll see, but at least the police didn't come to my house this morning. Are you going to see Helen? I don't think this is a good idea. She started this whole thing months ago, and after what she did this weekend, I'm not ready to take her back. It's better to leave everything as is. I filed for divorce. I cannot forgive or forget her actions. She cuckolded me, and the men from the club who were involved knew it. I will never forgive this humiliation. I understand, son. But still, talk to her at least someday. Now, this is a bad idea. If anything changes or you need help, let me know, okay? One last thing. I decided that the kids needed to be told that Helen and I were having problems. I don't want them to learn this from someone else. I hope you understand, but it needs to be done. Are you sure, Rick? Maybe you can settle everything, and then the children won't need to know about all this dirt. Although I understand why you want to explain something to them. Thanks for everything. No matter what happens, I'll tell her that you did try to save her from herself. I hung up and sat in silence for a few minutes until Alfie looked in on me. Let's take Helen's car. I know she's in terrible shape, but she's still going strong. It's better not to leave her where she is now. I can get a tow truck. We can cover her up and put her in your garage. I thought about it, but she started it. Yes, we ruined her car, so why should I fix anything? This bitch deserves everything that happens to her, even if it's a little humiliating. To hell with it, she can stay there for a few more days. Alfie walked away and headed into the kitchen to Patty. What did you expect? This bitch tore out his heart and lungs, of course. He is angry and wants to take out his anger on her. She deserves everything she gets, Patty blurted out. Okay, I just wanted to help, that's all. I know, darling, she answered softly, hugging him. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Helen. Alfie and Patty looked at me, waiting to see what I would do. I answered the call. Yes. Rick, I'm so sorry. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. I want to apologize. I understand that you know what happened. I'm so sorry, Rick. It was, well, just sex, you know. I love you so much. I didn't mean to hurt you. We didn't want to hurt you. Shut up, bitch. My anger burst out. Alfie and Patty flinched at my harsh tone. For starters, you have a strange way of showing your love. Do you think sleeping with other men is okay? Do you seriously think I won't notice? And your attempts to justify this by saying that it is just sex will not work. It's not just sex, Helen. It's sex with at least 2 men. What the hell? But Rick, I love you. Why did you send these photos to my friends? It was so humiliating trying to explain everything to them and my boss. Why, Rick? Our sex life should be private. Private. You stupid bitch, what's private about sleeping with other men? You humiliated me with two men from the club and participating in their fun, leaving me a laughing stock. Other people already knew, Helen. I thought you deserved some of your medicine. But now I have nowhere to go. She began to cry. My colleagues know everything, like everyone else in the club. George said we were kicked out of the club. It's not fair. Are you serious? You didn't even ask how to fix everything. You didn't ask for forgiveness. All you care about are your friends and the club. She fell silent. Her attempts to justify herself were dashed by my rage. That's not true, Rick. I really love you and want to fix everything. Yes? Then why did you spend the last few days after your dirty weekend in his bed? I blurted out, barely containing my anger. There was silence on the other end of the line. Nothing to say, dear wife. I know you were with him the night you came back, and again the next night, although you told Patty you were with your parents. Don't you dare lie to me, bitch, because I know. But how? I was at. I didn't stay at George's. One more lie and I'll hang up forever. Understood? Silence again. Finally, she answered. Okay, Rick, I'm sorry. You are right. Yes, we really had a messy weekend. I had sex with George and Brian in Blackpool, and I don't regret it, she said cheekily. That was great. It was exciting, and I wanted it. Brian said you'd probably like the idea of me with another man. He said that he and his wife switch partners, and it turns them on. He was sure you would feel the same. Well, he was damn wrong, wasn't he? I snapped so loudly that she must have felt my voice trembling with rage. After a pause, I continued. I think after my conversation with him yesterday and what happened last night, he realized that. Have you talked to Brian? She asked in a trembling voice. Yes, and he told me about all your lying tricks, about how you and George lied to him about how I approved of everything. Is this true, Helen? This is true. Silence again. I could almost hear her thoughts racing, searching for an answer. She decided to change tactics. My father said I should thank you for getting me out of there last night. But that wasn't necessary, Rick. I knew what was happening and agreed to it. Yes, I was a little out of my mind, but we thought that after everything that had already happened, it couldn't get any worse. We were just having fun. Are you really that stupid, Helen? Did you know they were filming everything? What do photographs do? Did you know? Silence again. Well, I demanded an answer. Yes, I kind of knew. Brian and George said that their friends have a circle in which they exchange such videos. It's just for fun, no big deal, she replied in a tone as if it was something completely normal. I was stunned. I can't believe you agreed to this. I don't know you at all. What the hell happened to you, Helen? I can't talk to you anymore. This is all complete crap. Go to hell, and let your bastard friends go there too. I don't know who you are now, but you're definitely not my wife, I shouted into the phone. Before I hang up, I will send you a copy of the text that your friend sent me. Now burn in hell. I ended the call and forwarded her a message from George, bragging about how he and Brian had used her. I threw the phone onto the table with a clatter, clenching my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my skin. I was furious. She completely agreed. She knew they were filming. We should have left that bitch there, I shouted, unable to contain my emotions. Alfie and Patty looked at me in shock, their faces showing a mixture of horror and sadness. I'm done with her. If I can, I will ruin her life. How could she do this to me like it didn't mean anything? No apology, nothing. She didn't even think about me, about the children, about anyone but herself. Alfie and Patty looked at me, not knowing what to say. I headed to my home office and fired up my laptop. Thoughts were swirling in my head, but I acted with cold determination. The first thing I did was write an email to the kids. It was short and discreet, so I asked them to contact me as soon as possible. I clarified that this was important, but assured that no one was hurt. Clenching my fists, I stared into space. My wife, whom I loved and trusted more than anything in the world, turned into a stranger. Images of what I had learned over the past few days swirled through my mind, alternating between rage and deep sadness. How did this happen? I asked myself this question again. What did I do wrong? Why didn't I notice anything? So what should I do now? Any doubts about my feelings for Helen disappeared. Her betrayal and coldness killed everything that connected us. The actions I took in response to her betrayal were dictated by anger, resentment, and a desire for revenge. Now I understood that there was no turning back. All that remained was to finish what he started and tell the children the truth. I raised my head and addressed Alfie. Did you happen to take the memory cards from those cameras we found on George? He froze, noticing the wild sparkle in my eyes, and nodded. Yes, Rick, they are in the drawer in front of you. I opened the drawer and took out the cards. I have no way back. I can't forgive Helen for what she did. She doesn't repent. I'll send the notes to my lawyer. Let the whole world know who she has become. Patty sighed heavily, looking at her husband. This is the end, Alfie, she whispered. He will never forgive her again. Yes, Alfie nodded. I never would have thought that it would end like this. I downloaded photos and videos from memory cards to my laptop. I soon began making copies, sending them to the lawyer and others. Alfie and Patty drank coffee in silence in the kitchen, listening to the sounds coming from the office. 20 minutes later, I left. My face was gray and haggard, my eyes red. I sent everything to the lawyer and asked to speed up the divorce process. I also transferred all the money to my account. Let Helen figure it out on her own. And yes, I sent the video to her friends. Why should I be the only one who saw it? I was silent for a moment, then added, now my children are the only thing I care about. I must warn them what awaits them when they return home. With these words, I fell to my knees. All the tension I had been holding inside came out. I was overcome by deep, uncontrollable sobs. Patty rushed to me, hugged me, and held me close, trying to console me. My body was shaking with tears, and Alfie, looking at me, also could not hold back his tears. 2 days later, I hung up after talking to my daughter. My cheeks were wet with tears. Rachel was crying on the other end of the line, but her words of encouragement warmed my heart. To her, I was a hero, and she was on my side. It was difficult for her to understand what her mother had done, but for her it was enough to support me. The conversation with Ryan was different. He tried to protect his mother, but he understood that it was useless. I remained firm in my intention to get a divorce. It hurt me, but at the same time it brought me relief. I sat on the patio watching the sunset. The children's words echoed in my head. Are you sure, Dad? I'm absolutely sure, I muttered, drinking the rest of the whiskey in one gulp. Walking over to the phone, I turned it on and checked the answering machine. There were 37 messages. I was surprised because I turned off the phone only in the morning. Rick, it's me. Delete. Rick, delete. Rick, delete. I deleted the messages one by one until I came across this message from Patty. Rick, we know you want to be alone, but just call us and tell us you're okay. Hang in there, big guy. I smiled, but also deleted this message. Most of the messages were from Helen. I deleted them all, not wanting to hear her voice. Rick, it's me. How are you? Just let me know you're okay. Helen received divorce papers. I understand your pain, son, but sharing the video was too much. Please call. Delete. I wanted to leave, but the phone rang again. Reluctantly, I picked up the phone without saying anything. Rick, are you there? Please don't hang up. We need to talk. Rick, talk to me. It was Helen's voice. She was sobbing. Her voice was shaking. Rick, today I was served with divorce papers. We can discuss this. What about children? We can overcome this. Talk to me. I was silent. I know you're there, Rick. Say something. Silence again. You took all the money from our account, Rick. What have you done? We need to talk, damn it. Her voice broke into sobs. I chuckled as I listened to her lose control. Rick, it's my fault. I screwed up. I don't know why I did this. It was exciting, dirty, vicious. Just sex. I couldn't stop. George took advantage of me, I know, but I don't understand how. Her voice trembled. She tried to justify herself until her tears drowned out the words. I stood listening to her cry and thought only about one thing. It's too late, Helen. It's over. Rick, these videos, why did you send them out? Now everyone considers me a woman of easy virtue. Helen burst into tears even more. Her voice became completely unintelligible. Did you have to post them on the internet? I remained silent, listening to her desperate attempts to maintain control. Her sobs grew louder, and I imagined her sitting there, trying to cope with the consequences of what she had done. He stood motionless, listening to his soon-to-be ex-wife pour out her heart. Rick, isn't there anything I can say or do? Is there anything to stop this and return everything to the way it was? Please, Rick, answer me. Talk to me. If you love me even a little, please talk. Her words echoed in his head as he wiped the tears from his face. His heart ached and he felt dizzy, knowing this was nearing the end. He understood that he would never be able to forgive her. He made a promise to her. He was faithful only to her. But she decided to throw him out of her life for dirty sex in a Blackpool hotel with her boyfriends. No, there was no turning back. He knew that in the end, he and the children would cope and move on with their lives. It will be difficult, but that's life. No, that's all he said, hanging up and turning off the ringer. Then he turned and, with difficulty moving his feet, went up to his bedroom. This was his bedroom now, not theirs. He lay down on the bed and let the tears flow again. It was all over. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.